Hi friends, here I come with the second part of the series of The Merchant of Venice. And I remember I made you a promise to take you to Belmont, which was also called the place of worship by the Prince of Morocco, one of the suitors of Portia. It is just because he was full of acclamation for her marvelous beauty and the nobility of her character. In his words, all the world desires her, from the four corners of the earth they come to kiss this shrine, this mortal breathing saint. His appreciation of Portia leaves us in awe, and we are confirmed that Portia stands the most sublime of all Shakespearean heroines. There, at Portia's palace in Belmont, we could witness the arrival of Portia's suitor, Morocco, a tawny Moor, that is, a dark complexioned Moor, dressed in white clothes, was full of self-praise and exaggeration, which could do nothing but evoke a feeling of comedy and amusement. He tried his luck to find the appropriate casket, possessed with Portia's exquisitely beautiful portrait inside, and chose the gold casket after a long assessment. But to his ultimate surprise, a carrion did, within whose empty eye there is a written scroll. What did he find inside? Yes, he found an empty skull, and in the hollow of which there was a parchment with some writing on it. However, his desire to win Portia proved to be futile, and he had to bid her farewell without delay. Then came the chance of another suitor present there, and that was the Prince of Aragon, who was proud of his high birth and dignity and thought himself to be a man of merits and was sure of getting success in the contest of casket choosing. Much to his consternation, he chose the silver casket and got an idiot winking at him along with a scroll where the judgment about choosing the silver casket was given. Now Portia had got rid of the other suitor also without offending him in any way. Back in Venice, the air was filled with thrill and there was sensation in the environment all around. As per some critics, Lorenzo and Jessica are a perfectly convincing pair of lovers who enhance the romantic interest of the story. Bassanio was ready to set out for Belmont along with Gratiano, as he was supplied with enough amount of money by his friend Antonio and had arranged a party for his friends before leaving, and Shylock was also invited there. Though Shylock was reluctant to attend the party, but out of his Jewish mentality, he decided to dine that night at the expense of a prodigal Christian. But before leaving for the party, he instructed Jessica, his daughter, to lock the doors of his house. When she heard the sound of the drums and the hateful noise of the masked procession taken out by the Christian boys, and frantically spoke out, "Clamber not you up to the casement then, nor thrust your head into the public street to gaze on Christian fools with varnished faces," totally ignorant of the fact that dark night would turn out to be an extremely dark and gloomy night for him, because Jessica had made up her mind to slip away from her father's house with her lover Lorenzo, carrying with her a bag full of money and jewels. This act of Jessica was highly objectionable. It gives the audience a chance to find a contrast between the two heroines, Portia and Jessica. Portia, the leading heroine of the play, whereas Jessica, the heroine of the romantic Lorenzo-Jessica subplot. Portia suppressed her own feelings but did not think of going beyond her father's will. But Jessica was guilty of having disgraced her father by eloping with Lorenzo. She herself was ashamed of this act of running away stealthily, and we can witness it when she said to Lorenzo, "I am glad it's night. You do not look on me, for I am ashamed of my exchange." And also she felt embarrassed at the time of holding torch, as she said, "What? Must I hold a candle to my shames?" Thus we feel like taking a lenient view of her conduct because we know that her father Shylock was a strong Puritan and excessively conservative man who had made the atmosphere of the house suffocating and almost intolerable. Next, we found Solario and Solanio confirming the audience the departure of Bassanio along with Gratiano from Venice to Belmont, and also they talked about Shylock's rage over the loss of his daughter Jessica and his treasure that she had taken away with her. They also divulged Antonio's intense love for Bassanio, which could be seen when the two parted. His eyes big with tears, turning his face, he put his hand behind him, and with affection wondrous sensible, he wrung Bassanio's hand, and so they parted. For this, Solanio reciprocated, "I think he only loves the world for him." Leaving Shylock's abhorrence towards Antonio and his friends, we find many more examples of fraternity and amity in this act too. Like a harbinger of love, Bassanio reached at Portia's palace in Belmont, carrying with him gifts of rich value, for which Portia responses, "Quick Cupid's post that comes so mannerly." Back to Venice, we find Shylock broken outrageously at the loss of his daughter and his ducats. Now I wish little more attention to be drawn towards. This act provides us ample scope to go through the traits of main characters. For example, Antonio and Shylock, Portia and Jessica. Jot down a short answer in compare and contrast form and leave it in the comment box. The other question for you is, which casket did the Prince of Morocco and the Prince of Aragon choose and why? And what did they get inside? See you in another video of Act 3. Thank you. I'm trying to make learning interesting for you. So don't forget to subscribe this channel to get uninterrupted notifications of the same. Bye bye.